You've seen a lot of newsreel shots like this. Ocean liners coming into a harbor with flags waving and whistles blowing. And maybe that's all a port means to you. But this is what it's going to be like where you're headed. Ruin and desolation. Not results of chance, not acts of God, but calculated destruction planned by a clever enemy. Let's see what a port is made of. First of all, it has piers, docks, wharves, and quays where ships can be sheltered while they're loaded and unloaded. But the piers and docks and quays you're going to work on will look like this. A port has elaborate cargo handling equipment to aid in loading and unloading. But you won't find much cargo being unloaded with this. A port has sheds and warehouses to store and protect cargoes while they await further transportation. Sheds and warehouses awaiting your close attention and your aching backs. A port has a system of railways and roads linking it to the interior. And this is what the enemy will leave for you. Last and most important, a port has unobstructed waterways for navigation. But this is what you'll find. The enemy knows the importance of every corner of a harbor, and he has blocked, blasted, and booby-trapped to keep us from using it. Take these sunken ships, for instance. They served the enemy twofold. First of all, the ships he was unable to sail out, he sank to prevent our using them. And second, he sank them in such a way as to block navigation in the harbor. He sank them in other places too, but only where it counted, in a ruined dry dock, alongside a wharf, perpendicular to a quay. In addition to everything the enemy did, we did a few things ourselves to blast him out of port areas. Sometimes the damage done by our own bombers and artillery amounted to 50% of the total. Between the two of us, a job was cooked up that the engineers won't soon forget. The average captured port usually looks something like this when we move in. So the first job is to get the fires out and save as much property as possible. And there are other things that must be taken care of before the work we think of as port repair actually starts. The waterfront must be made safe by the removal of landmines and booby traps. Dangerously tottering walls, often purposely left standing by the enemy, must be blown down. And finally, the vast obstructing piles of rubble and debris have to be cleared away. The actual job of port repair is planned by the engineer officer and the port commander. The naval arm is in charge of minesweeping and large-scale salvage operations. The port construction and repair group handles all land and waterfront repairs. Let's get a bird's-eye view of the situation. This is a typical destroyed port. It would probably take years to put it back into its original condition, and there's no guarantee it could ever be done. But your job is to restore its military usefulness, and that can be done. We'll simplify the problem to give you a clearer understanding of what's in front of you. Any ship approaching the harbor will first of all be stopped by the maze of enemy mines sown before its entrance. These mines, as well as those distributed throughout the harbor itself, will have to be removed. Then let's say our ship proceeds to the narrow entrance channel. Very likely it will next be held up by a floating submarine net or some other submerged obstacle left by the enemy. After the obstacle has been removed, the ship can move farther forward, But here, in all probability, it'll be stopped by, say, a block ship, a prepared sunken vessel filled with cement, rock, or other heavy material, so it can't be towed out of the way. Carefully placed cutting charges will have to be used to blast a path through it. Finally, progress through the channel is liable to be held up by the superstructures of one or more scuttled vessels sunk at strategic points. Demolition of these superstructures by flattening charges will usually provide clear passage. Clearing the harbor of mines is the Navy's job. It generally takes a few days, although sometimes it runs more than a week. The time involved depends on the weather, how thoroughly the enemy has planted mines, and how many minesweepers are set to work. Once a channel has been cleared, the first large ship to enter the harbor is the Engineer Port Repair Ship. A special unit of the Corps of Engineers, this ocean-going vessel is equipped to tackle offshore problems both on and under the surface of the water. It can easily be identified by the cathead on its prow. This hoisting device has a 40-ton capacity and may be used to lift small craft or heavy debris and tow them out of the way. The ship also has several booms of 5 and 10-ton capacity, as well as a huge 50-ton job for extra heavy duty. In the hold is a large machine shop for repair of harbor and mechanical apparatus and the making of small parts. Full equipment for diving operations is also carried, an important part of the ship's work. The harbor floor is thoroughly explored and charted. Where channels are found to be blocked, the divers place demolition charges to get rid of the obstructions. If the obstacles can be salvaged, the ship's powerful machinery raises them and gets them ready for towing. Larger wrecks often have to be handled piecemeal. This diver is equipped with a special electrical torch which enables him to cut through steel underwater. At the same time, other men are working above the water. The ship's bridge is hoisted out of the way. With the obstacles cleared, shipping can enter the neighborhood of the shoreline. But that's not the entire problem. The ships have to be berthed. And here's where we find out what's meant by making a port usable for military purposes. Not every pier is cleaned up. Where it'll be too tough to make an area fit for shipping, it's left alone. Only piers, quays, and wharves that have escaped total destruction are selected. The lighter wreckage and rubble are cleared away, and repairs are made to put the installations back into working order. Our ship may now pull in to unload her cargo. It's easy to do it in the movies, but repairing shoreline facilities represents a lot of sweat and trouble. First of all, equipment and machinery of all sorts must be brought into the harbor. Loaded onto shallow draft barges which can dump their cargoes at makeshift landings are cranes, bulldozers, and other earth-moving machinery. Cement mixers and trailers for the rapid transport of heavy equipment. Trucks, pile driving apparatus, generators and air compressors for pneumatic tools, and supplies such as lumber, structural steel, cement, and so forth. A pile is swung into place as the rebuilding of a demolished quay gets underway. The piles are driven to support stringers over which heavy plank flooring will be laid. The pile driver also comes in handy in repairing or building a pier. Piles have also been driven to repair a break in the seawall. Damaged masonry is broken away and cleared. Planks are nailed to the piles to complete the concrete forms. Now the concrete mixers are set to work to pour their product into the forms. When the concrete is hardened, a strong outer wall will be formed, and the rest of the breach can be filled in with stones and rubble. One thing these ports have is plenty of rubble, and that's fortunate, because rubble can be put to a variety of uses along the waterfront. For example, not all our ships need piers, quays, and wharves. Shallow draft vessels, such as LCMs, LCIs, and LSTs, need much simpler facilities. As you can see, if the LCM came any closer, it would smash on the underwater rocks. But the ramp can't be dropped here because it would go into the water and the cargo couldn't be unloaded. That's where the rubble comes in. Hard standings, which are special extensions made of rubble and broken rock, are built out into the water to fill in the space between the landing craft and the shore. Now let's see how a hard standing is built on the spot. The broken rock and rubble are carted in and dumped. This is a good spot to have a bulldozer to smooth out the ramp and extend it into the water. Or two bulldozers. And here's the hard standing complete. A number of hard standings built at gently sloping banks in the harbor enable LSTs to come right up to the shore and discharge their cargoes. All right, we've landed shallow draft vessels and we've berthed deep draft vessels. But it isn't enough just to get them tied up at a pier or wharf. The cargoes have to be moved inland where they're to be used. That means repairing railroads and roads. Civilian labor is utilized wherever possible to help in this work. In Naples, the group of 700 Italians with whom we started soon became an army of 24,000, making possible a significant shortening of the time schedule. The more specialized branches of the job remain in the hands of skilled engineer troops. Motor transport, too, has its difficulties. Roadblocks set up by the enemy have to be blown out, and that's part of port repair. This whole business of port repair is a kind of race in which we try to rebuild quickly what the enemy has tried to destroy. Sometimes the race is a walkaway for our side. The first Liberty ship entered Naples only 3 days after the Germans left. And in 3 months, Naples was handling more tonnage than the port of New York. The enemy has learned a lot since then, new and more devastating methods of destruction. And the race has grown tougher. Cherbourg was far from a walkaway. But no matter how smart or desperate the enemy is, we'll take the ports away from him and you'll clean up the mess so that these ports can serve as new jumping-off places for more invasions. Keep that in mind when you're cursing that aching back.